what people think they're going to get out of connecting with you.
Most businesses die from indigestion and not starvation.
Blackstone, we're the largest sleep testing provider in the country. I haven't spent $1 on an ad.
You can work from home, but you're not going to work for me, is what you said. And I'm like, that's an interesting philosophy.
I will hire you if you can do the job. If you can add value to my organization, I don't care what you look like. You may lose some business because of it, but I think you gain more than you lose. Because if you really think about it, I think what's happening right now in this country and even society in general is there's a liberation that's happening that's coming under this cloud of suppression, right? Like we've been suppressed as people for so long, right? If you think about now, people are calling out the media and they're calling out these different organizations that are trying to suppress your idea, right? Like at the end of the day, do we want to live in a country where it's like somebody can say that they're this, but you can't? Because if you can't, then it's a problem. In my observation, because being in the healthcare space, it's even more conservative than your space, right? Because we're dealing with, the AMA and the American Medical Association, and we're dealing with doctors and nurses and all this stuff, and the physician and the medical healthcare world has a very kind of fixed kind of presentation, right? Yeah. I obviously don't fit into that presentation, right? There was a study done with doctors, and it was about a lot of the doctors they were concerned about leaving their car out front, so then they would buy like a conservative car, a BMW or a Mercedes or something like that, right? So they did a study. This was an actual study, and the study was basically that they asked a group of people, I think it was like 5,000 patients, if you were going to get orthodontic work done, you were going to go to a dentist, and you showed up at the dentist. There were two dentists, one that had a Bentley parked outside his office, and the other one had a BMW M3. I don't know why they picked M3, but it was M3. And overwhelmingly, they picked the other one.
It's funny you tell that story. I was literally talking to somebody today about that younger entrepreneur, and he was saying like he's hasn't bought a nice car because he's worried about what his employees will think about. And I actually had that sort of self-consciousness too when we started making money. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to park my car kind of around the corner. And somebody grabbed me kind of aside and said, look, Nick, your employees know you're making money. They actually know you're rich. They want you to be rich. And people are attracted to wealth.
It's survival.
They want to learn from wealth. It's aspirational for them to be affiliated and associated because they want to, by osmosis or by otherwise, have what you're able to achieve or create. And so I do think there's something to that for sure. I was literally talking about that today to somebody.
It's true, man. Like people want to know, your employees want to know that you're doing well. And this idea that you're doing well, so that means the person is going to ask you for more money is asinine, right? But it's like, okay, well, dude, I took all the risk. You didn't. I was the one that was eating ramen noodles for 5 years, not you. So I get to make as much money as I want to make, right? It's because I took all the risks. I'm the guy that signed the PGs.
When we first, I think we probably had 4 or 5 junk trucks in our early days. Omar went to the dealership. We were still on the trucks doing the work ourselves.
Yeah, what year was that when you guys started?
We started 2005.
2005. So how old were you guys then?
23,
22.
How old are you guys now?
42, 43.
Okay, all right. I'm 48. I thought we were about the same age.
Yeah.
Close.
Yeah, so
you guys were in your early 20s.
Yeah. And I remember Omar walked into a Range Rover dealership in his work boots and khakis and college Hunks polo shirt and looked around. They thought he was there to do some maintenance work. And he's like, I'll take that one.
Yeah.
And then he showed up to the office the next day with us. I was like, you crazy. What are you doing? And to your point, I was worried that, but there might have been that one employee who was like, oh, you guys are getting rich off of us. And I want more money. But everybody else was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So
we're doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing good. So you're right. It's true. I mean, people think not. Like I had this funny story. I don't know if this guy's probably watching. I don't know, but I won't say names. But anyway, he was a financial advisor, right? He had this idea that his clients really valued the fact that he had a paid off old Mercedes. Okay, he had a paid off old C-Class Mercedes, and so he was explaining this thing one day, and I was kind of listening to him. And I'm like, okay, dude. I'm like, okay, cool. So about a week later, I had a doctor friend of mine call me. He's like, "Hey man, do you know a good financial advisor?" I'm like, "Yeah, funny enough you mentioned. I just had, lunch at this place, and this guy was there. Seemed really nice, dressed really well, whatever. I'll connect you guys." So I connected him. The next week, the guy went over to his house, to the doctor's house, to talk to him, right, about financial advice services. That afternoon, my doctor friend calls me, and I'm like, "Hey, man, what's up?" He's like, "Hey." I'm like, "Hey, so how did it go, right, with the financial advisor guys?" He goes, "It was good." I'm like, "What do you mean it was good?" He goes, "He showed up in an old Mercedes."
Yeah, if I'm going to trust somebody with financial advice, I want somebody.
But you see the contrast, and he was like, "I mean, if he would have showed up in a nice new S-Class, I would think this guy's doing well, and I want to give him my money." But this guy was thinking with a poor mentality. He was just like, "No, I'm going to show up with my paid-off S-Class." Mm-hmm. Yet the other guy's thinking, "Dude, you showed up in an old Mercedes." You know what I mean?
What it actually comes down to is we're really talking about branding too, if you think about it. I mean, this is branding, what you have here, and what we started was, it's like we'd invented trucks and labor or moving. Yeah. We took a simple concept.
How did you come up with a name?
I'll let Omar tell this story.
Yeah, we were sitting around a dinner table. We knew we wanted to do this for a summer gig, and my mom looked at us and was like, "You guys are like the college hunks who haul junk."
Yeah.
We just looked at each other and like, "That's a great
It's a great name."
Yeah. And most people will do something like that in college, and then college ends and you stop. For some reason, we just kept going. We were like, well, let's just see how big we can make it. We always tell the story. We went and bought a 1-800 number to make ourselves look big. We only had one truck. We put it on the back of the truck, still routed to our cell phone, and people would call to complain about driving, and we'd be in the driver's seat being like, "Oh yeah, we'll fire those guys back in the office. We'll tell them to be safer back on the road." So fired ourselves like 3 or 4 times that first summer.
Yeah. And it was just you two?
It was just the two of us, yeah.
And you were going to school at the same time or no?
Yeah, we started in college.
You guys went to USF?
I went to University of Miami. He went to school in California at Pomona College.
And you guys met here in
We
Tampa?
met in D.C. We went to high school together.
Okay.
So we met in 10th grade in detention, of all places. Kept in touch and would link back up in D.C. during summer break. And that's when we started the business with a beat-up cargo van. Then graduated. Got corporate jobs, quick into those, realized this is not for us, quit those, and then started in 2005.
Yeah, we describe it as like a 20-year overnight success, because today we've got 200 franchise locations around the country, 300 million annual sales, and so a far cry from a beat-up cargo van and, a mom's funny name. Yeah. But yeah, it's been a long journey. I think a lot of people think the overnight success happens overnight, and there's certainly no shortcut.
20 freaking years.
20 years.
Yeah, grinding. So how did you? Well, I think it's really amazing, and congrats guys on all the success, man. It's really admirable. You don't see it that often, right? It's how many small percentage of companies make it. Less than 1% of companies make it past 10 million in revenue. It's less, 50 or 100 or 300. How have you guys not killed each other?
It's a great question.
Because, dude, it's like partners is like the hardest thing, man.
Yeah, I've heard your partnership stories, and those are usually ours is the exception to the norm. Usually
how the hell have you guys? What you guys drinking?
Man, it's a combination, I think, of luck and the fact that we happen to be best friends that have similar but different personalities that I think match up really well in a business environment. Yeah. So there was that piece. It was like sort of happenstance and luck. Yeah. And then I think it's shared core vision, shared values, shared culture. We don't hold things back. Like, we have a locker football team mentality, right? Confront each other.
You can cuss. We can cuss.
Yeah, all right, we can cuss. We'll get in each other's faces and say.
Yeah, but do you ever get pissed? Like, you guys like, "Hey, dude, you're not working as hard as me," or
we've had many of those arguments, and even in the early days when it was like, who's going to empty out the truck? I'd be kicking him because he's sleeping on the couch. I'd be like, "Bro, get the up. You got to go empty the truck." He's like, "You do it." I'm like, "Okay, I'll do it then." But I think, or we'd have an argument of like, if we're going to keep somebody or fire somebody. But I think to Omar's point, the tactics and how we would do something might differ, but it was always like the end game, the vision, the values stayed the same. And I think the other piece is probably like a marriage or any other relationship. You got to kind of kill the emotional resentment quickly. You got to stamp that out. Like, if I'm upset about something, I can't carry that with me till the next day. Vice versa, because if I carry that, start harboring it as resentment, then it's going to manifest and expand and start doing things and undermining each other or the business. So I think recognizing and appreciating what each other brings to the table, having open lines of communication, being willing to fight even physically, and then just kind of get past it and not not be pissed off the next day about it. Which
got some boxing gloves in here. We
we got them right somewhere. We have Nerf guns.
But I mean, it is also kind of like the every sort of like high school boy's dream to be able to like, hey, let's, imagine if when we grow up we start a business together and we'll have these fancy cars and we'll have these nice houses and we'll have these pretty wives and have our kids play together and like our daughters.
But is that true? You like you guys like the wives hang out and their
families. I mean, our daughters are in the same grade in the same school.
That's remarkable, man.
Yeah, we did a spring break ski trips together. So
that's cool.
Yeah, and imagine going on a private plane to Jackson Hole with both of our families. We're like, man, if we if our 10th grade selves and teachers could see us now, like, what would they be saying?
Yeah.
So
just to kind of stay on track. So when did you feel like you had a business? Like you were like, hey, this is something that we think we can take to the next level.
The first year we started in 2005, it was the housing boom, and we went from 1 truck to 8 trucks in that 1 year.
Yeah.
And we did over $1 million in revenue.
Yeah.
And that was like, all right, we've proven the model. It's profiting. Let's start franchising.
What gave you that? Because franchising is not an easy thing to do, number one. But it's not necessarily the first thing somebody thinks of, right? No. Because I'm like, if I had a moving company, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to get now 20 more trucks or 30 more trucks and expand and hire managers and all this stuff. Why didn't you go down that road?
I think we had a naive view of what franchising really was, if I'm being honest. We kind of had these like glamorized blinders on. Like you hear the buzzword franchise. Immediately you think royalty, passive income, McDonald's,
CCBY, we're rich.
We're going to see our trucks in every city.
We got Pablo Escobar.
Yeah, this is it.
So we kind of, I think that's kind of what got us into it. And then when we started down that pathway in that hallway, we were like, holy shit, this is hard.
Yeah.
And then we were like, well, we're not going back that way, so let's just keep marching forward. And we finally kind of bridged the cavern to the other side or the canyon to the other side to where because they don't tell you that, it's going to take $500,000 to $1 million to get your franchise system stable enough to support multiple locations. And they don't tell you that you need 50 to 100 plus locations to be royalty self-sufficient. So you think, I'll just sell a few and I'm getting these injections. So it's a micro funding strategy. Yeah. Like if you want to expand your brand into multiple markets and you don't have the capital or the human resources to do it, franchising is viable to do that. And I think...
and you guys don't have any ownership in those franchises, or you do?
We own 4 of the locations ourselves. And the rest of our 200 locations are franchise owned. So owner operated, it's
what was the franchise fee then?
Back then it was about
25,000.
What's it now? Somebody wants to
75. Yeah.
75 grand. So if somebody is watching this, got 75 grand, they give you 75 grand, and then what do you do for them? I mean, in a summary. I'm sure you do a lot, but
there's a week-long training.
They get trucks with it?
No, trucks.
You got to buy the trucks. You can finance those.
Absolutely. We provide the truck vendors, best-in-class marketing program, training, call center, back office support.
It's a business in a box. You're getting the brand, which is a viral, well-known national brand, and then you're getting the system for how to start.
Do you do any ads for them and stuff, or
we do some ads, and then they have vendors. We have vendors that
like targeted ads. If they're in Houston, for example, they can pay for their own targeted ads in Houston.
But what's crazy is like when we first started, we were like, how we couldn't rub 2 pennies together, let alone have our franchise owners figure out how to do it. Now we've got like franchise owners that are profiting over $1 million a year. Buying dream houses on the water, and we're like, holy. This thing is working, and it's worked, and not everybody can do it,
right?
But it's like we're not going to guarantee to make you rich if you buy a franchise, but we're going to give you the tools and the systems and the playbook and the coaching and support to be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And it's like you could have a Ferrari car, but if you don't know how to drive it, and somebody can't teach you how to drive it, then you're going to F it up.
Personal training, go to the gym, but if you're just haphazardly picking up weights, you're not going to
or you're drinking a beer in your car on the way there.
We can only give you the tools, the system.
Eating a hoagie.
Can't give you the want it.
And you talked about the franchise piece. I mean, creating systems and processes so it can grow, and then hiring people to create systems and processes. Because I think most people come to us, we're like, oh, I want to franchise my business. Can you help me do it? And we probably spend most of the first 5-10 minutes of the conversation trying to talk them out of going down that path, just to make sure they don't have that, again, sort of naive view that we did when we got into it. Then once we understand, like, hey, could you open up your other locations yourself, or could you just build a nice local regional operation without having to go create this whole new layer of franchising? That can help us give guidance as to whether that's something they should pursue or not. But it's definitely not for everybody, and I think people need to kind of understand like what it actually entails.
So then you feel like, hey, this is the model to go to, and then you started just putting resources behind that. Did you guys go out and raise money? Like, how did you guys grow it?
It was all self-funded from that one corporate store in DC. And it was just proving the model, and it took time. Just like Nick said, it's a 20-year overnight success. Through the recession is when we started to ramp up franchising in 2008. And as you can imagine, housing market's down, people are losing money, paying for moving and junk removal is low on the list. So it sort of forced us to get gritty and just kind of do more with less.
Yeah.
And it's sort of coming out of that in 2013, 14, I'd say is when we hit that tipping point.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, franchisees are making money.
The momentum started to click.
8 years later, right?
Yeah. So it's
got some wins. And
we tell people, any business, unless you get really lucky, is kind of a get rich slow proposition. If you try to shortcut the success, it's usually 2 steps backwards or 5 steps backwards or sideways. And then we've tried to do that too. Like we have the entrepreneurial ADD, where it's like, oh, this could be a better idea, or this could be a faster mousetrap to get to, profitability. And you're always comparing yourself to people around you and trying to not suffer that pain.
Yeah,
so
that's true. That's true.
Focus.
Yeah, it's just hard for because
it's hard. It is hard because you get distracted really easily.
Yeah, and everything sounds like a good idea. I always say like to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. To an entrepreneur, everything looks like an opportunity. And so you want to pursue all of them, and you sometimes have to just be a little bit more disciplined about what you're gonna, go after.
It's true. So how do you guys manage? Like I had Ryan Hammy here yesterday, Hammy TV. His numbers are crazy, man. This guy's got crazy. Like each video is like 40 million. It's ridiculous.
It's crazy, yeah.
Anyway, he's a good friend of mine, and he was here yesterday, and he was asking me about balance, right? Because when you have a wife, you have kids, you have all this stuff. Like I don't necessarily believe in balance. I don't think it exists. What do you guys think about balance?
Yeah, I was just asked this question a few weeks ago. I think early stage entrepreneur balance is a myth, right? It's probably the beauty of starting young is you don't have the wife, the kid, the house payment for the most part, right?
Yeah.
And
hopefully.
And so, but even still, I think balance is a myth, but there is some truth to it's not a marathon, it's a series of sprints.
Yeah.
And like after that sprint, taking a pause and sort of evaluating where you are and preparing for that next sprint.
Yeah.
It's not a constant.
Yeah. I think the sort of a self-assessment, evaluation, and then intentionality is I guess critical to trying to achieve where you want to pour your energy and effort and time.
Yeah.
Like for me, my framework that I've somehow developed for myself is what I call the 6 F's: family, faith, fitness, friends, finance, and fun. Mm-hmm. And so I'm always sort of doing like a little bit of a check-in, like which of those buckets is depleted, which of those buckets is neglected, which of those buckets needs my all-in energy right now. And just, as an entrepreneur, usually it's that finance bucket. That's the business bucket. Like
how's the fun one?
Yeah. And then the fun one can be very distracting if it's not aligned with the other 5 F's. If you're going off to Vegas and you come back hungover and you got your tail between your legs and you're on the couch for 3 days, all the other not 5 helpful. Suffer.
Yeah.
And so you got to figure out, hey, maybe there's some fun factor, like doing a business with a buddy of mine. Hey, that checks off friends, finance, and fun.
Yeah.
Or if we can, I don't know, bring our families together. Now we got family and fun on a ski trip. So I think that's the way I've tried to approach it.
Yeah.
But to your point, like is you've got to be kind of like all in obsessed.
Yeah.
Like people that are successful in business, they're built different. Yeah. Like they get up and eat glass. You get up and eat glass every morning and go do this and go do your real, your primary business.
Yeah.
I don't say real, this is real business too, but your primary, business. And like not everybody's built that way to be able to like juggle all those kind of, in some cases, competing forces.
Yeah. Do you think that's something you learn, or you think you're just born with it?
I think it's both. I mean, I certainly think we have a disposition to risk taking, to always wanting more.
But that you're born with, I think.
Yeah, I think that part you're born with.
Yeah, I don't think you can teach
I think the risk taking and the disposition to always wanting more and not being satisfied, you're born with.
The grind you're probably born with too.
The grind, I think you can be, maybe you're born. I mean, I don't want to say you're born with it all because you can practice.
But I think that the tactical stuff
is like
you can learn. Like, you can learn finance, public speaking, org chart dynamics, interview techniques. An athlete might be born with certain innate abilities, but then he's going to hone his swing.
And also, by the way, like, people born with our disposition also are bank robbers, gambling addicts. So it's like, just because you're born with this disposition doesn't mean you're going to be successful. It's like you can kind of go 2 ways with it. So
you got to channel your energy for the force of good. You got to surround yourself with the right network and influences.
Right.
And then obviously, hopefully, pick up the skills and techniques that allows you to channel that energy for something.
How important is that? So you touched on that about friends. So a lot of people, and I talk a lot about this on my social media about picking the right friends and how you have to be so picky about the people that you have around you. I'm ruthless with that. Like, I made a list one time in 2018. I drew a line in the middle of the paper. It's a true story. I recommend people do this. Draw a line in the center of the paper, and on the left side, I wrote down every name of everybody that was for my goals and dreams. And everybody on the right side was not for my goals and dreams. Like, they just weren't. Mm-hmm. Like, being really honest about it because of comments they would make and things they would say or do or not showing up when I needed it, or jealousy or hating or whatever. And you just kind of know, you know, they like, you meet them and they're like, no, I'm super happy for your success. You know, and they're like stabbing the knife in your back. Passive aggressive comment. Yeah.
Doing your little podcast again, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, I see your little podcast you're doing. Wow, your little social media page is growing. It's like, wow. You know, I saw your little plane, you know, that, right? And they'll do that, right? And so what I did was I literally just was like, I blocked everybody on the right side of that list. Blocked them. Like, so if they're watching the video and they're like, hey, why didn't he text me back? Now you know. Like, I blocked them, dude. And there were a few people that I called and I was like, hey, man, I'm making a shift in what I'm doing. If you're going to be with me, all this negativity, it's got to stop. And if you bring it up again or you make stupid comments again, like, that's it for me. And it wasn't an antagonistic thing. It was just like, hey, I'm just being direct with you. And I'm telling you, man, when I did that, it's like my life changed. Like my business grew 286% over a 3-year period from that time in 2018 that I did that. And I mean, and then I met my wife and all this stuff and everything changed for me. That's how profound it was. Literally, then I didn't have anybody that I was connected to that was negative about my goals and my dreams and my ambitions or making me think that I was less than or that I couldn't reach for things or that my ambitions were too big or, you know, comments like, oh, well, you're working too much and all you care about is money and all those, you know, all those stupid comments that broke people say. Broke people say that, all you care about is money, you broke, right? Because rich people don't say that. Rich people are like, hey, let's make more money so we can help other people and donate and do whatever we want to do, right? How have you guys managed that? Because obviously for you guys to be successful, whether consciously or subconsciously, you've had some sort of formula because it's really hard to be successful with the wrong people around you.
I think for me that was more of an evolved, learned intention. Because you know, in the early days I would get, you know, distracted or influenced by, you know, the kids that were getting into trouble in class because it looked fun or it looked, you know, entertaining. And that kind of continued on into college and shortly thereafter. And you're right, you have to start recognizing sort of the paths and kind of do a self-audit.
And girls, and particularly for guys, like guys that are watching this that are successful or that are starting to make money. If you're a guy, you're not really good looking, but you're making money, you still get a lot of attention from chicks. But then you got guys that are, you know, like you guys are handsome guys, you're making money. All of a sudden it's like the women are on you like ants, right?
The good news, we weren't making money when we were
well, exactly right. So that was a blessing, right? But how do people deal with that type of stuff? I mean, that's stuff that people deal with.
Those are the distractions. I mean, on that friend line, it's like for me, it's cutting out people that are going to distract me with going out, partying, drinking, things like that, which is a negative energy. But I think it's like, what are your goals, right? And surround yourself with people that, like you said, are for them.
You hear this, you know, you've said it, you become the average of the people you surround yourself with. And I was making a joke the other day. I was like, man, I feel like all I'm doing right now is hanging out with my kids and my wife and my dog. So I'm somehow becoming the average of those. I don't know what that's going to end up as. But no, seriously, I think, or you got to eliminate not just the haters, but I also think you need to eliminate the flakes.
Oh,
you know, because there's deal makers and there's flakes, and flakes can be they can be very, you know, magnetic. You want to convincing.
They got some going on.
Yeah, they sound fun. They sound, you know, they got this exciting, you know, happening, and they can bring some energy around them that seems enticing. But at the end of the day, they're not making anything happen. Yeah. And those might be even harder to decipher than the haters, because the haters, like, you can see pretty clearly, this is negative energy. Yeah. But the flakes is like, oh, this is, you know, this sounds fun. This is cool. Or let's go, you know, do that. And then it can really throw you off your game. So I think those are the two antennas that you gotta, to your point, if you're trying to get better as as a leader and also further your company, your family, yourself, whatever the case may be, that's a critical component of who you bring with you and who is going to help you get there. Yeah. So Omar does it more naturally. I'm more of like, read something, a book, and bring it back and try and bring it to our business. So we read Good to Great, Jim Collins, and it talks about, you know, which is now cliche to say, but, you know, the core value set, define your core values as leaders, as founders, translate that into your business. And then we have a slogan in our company: it's not what's on the walls, it's what's in the halls. Meaning, it's not the core values on the walls or on the front page of the training manual. It's the people and the behaviors that represent the values that make the difference. And so I think we've been very intentional about that. We talk about our core values every day, and we say that core values drive behavior drives results. And that's what creates the culture. When you always hear like, oh, it's a culture-driven organization, it's kind of a esoteric concept, but I think when you think about it, it ultimately drives down to like who's in your building or associated with your brand, and which also gets back to the people that you don't want to associate with, and what are the behaviors that drive the results for the organization, and align those things where people want to be a part of it, and they're excited to be a part of it. I don't know if you'd add anything to that.
No, I would say you were both failed athletes, so we always aspire to be, professional sports team, but we bring, I think, that idea of sports team. And on sports teams, you have tough conversations. You hold people accountable. On great teams, the players hold each other accountable. So that's like what we're doing.
I'll say the one mistake we made early on is we were reading all these books about company culture, and we like swung the pendulum way too warm and fuzzy. And I saw a quote that's like, the soft stuff doesn't work if it doesn't have performance-based toughness behind it. And Omar made a quote at one point. He's like, we have too much Sesame Street in our company, not enough Wall Street. And I think you do need the proper balance, because if it's all Wall Street, then people are stabbing each other in the back. The minute things get tough, they're walking out the door. If it's all Sesame Street, then it's like it's kinder care. Nothing's getting done. Nobody wants to be held accountable. And so like when we realized that, we started trying to hold people accountable to results. And they're like, well, this is not in line with our core values. And we're like, what did we do? What did we create? We created a monster. So we had to kind of like either level up those individuals, make them a little tougher, or level them out and bring some people in that kind of understood both the values and the results.
That's that woke mentality. No, I know, but it's just like, hey, it's just like entitlement. Everybody should just be here and get
the victim mentality. We want to try to eliminate, because it's like let's take extreme ownership for our outcomes. Like, yes, we didn't all grow. We weren't all born in the same circumstance. Everybody started from a different starting block. But where you are in your life was primarily, if not exclusively, paved by yourself. Paved. And so you got to sort of take ownership and I guess sort of like inventory of where you're at. And if you're trying to get somewhere else, then
it's so true.
Make it happen.
So true.
Most businesses die from indigestion and not starvation. So it's easy as a business owner to try to like look at everything and do it all. We've evolved to create a process for filtering down those 10x opportunities. And then making those all we work on. So it's like saying no is 90% of the battle.
You got to say no a lot.
You have to.
And in the early days, like we didn't have this like crazy lightning in a bottle disruptor like a Uber or Snapchat. It was trucks, labor, and a catchy name with bright colors. But the market was telling us like this is going to work. Like customers were telling us, oh, that name is so funny and catchy. Oh, like I need the service. Come to my house and haul the junk away. And so we realized that, okay, we've got something here. And every time we tried to veer off and do something else, it was like we were digging a mile wide, inch deep, a bunch of little holes. And so we were like, okay, no, we got to keep delving in on what's working. What the market is telling us is working, even if it's not glamorous, or even if it's not
it's not sexy or that. Who cares?
Fun, but we've had some fun with it, right? We were on Shark Tank episode 1. We were on Undercover Boss. We were Omar hauled junk on a dating show on Bravo before we met our wives. So like we've had some fun with it to kind of bring a consumer brand to the mainstream, and there's compound effort, compound of time and energy, and all that stuff starts to snowball into momentum.
But it's a hard thing to do, because you got two ADD entrepreneurs, have a million ideas, bringing a million ideas to the team.
It drives the team crazy.
So it's like we have a process, and we have what we call an integrator, someone on our team that leads the team that's kind of the buffer between all of our ideas and distilling the ones that are actually the ones that are
because it used to happen. We'd get an idea and send a text to 8 people or an email. They're like in the middle of a project, and they're like, am I supposed to drop what I'm doing now and go chase this rabbit into the woods, or is Nick and Omar going to be mad if I don't do this?
But
now
you got somebody to vet it out and
we try to have a filter through rather than just send it right when it hits our head, unless it's a time sensitive thing. We'll compile a list, and we do kind of a brain dump discussion with that integrator to vet, like, hey, are we going to set this on the shelf? Are we going to pursue it? Who's going to do it? Not how are we going to do it?
Makes sense. Makes sense.
What made you decide to go all in on the personal brand development, the content creation, and then how do you view that contributing and lifting up your business opportunities, your core business, and everything in between? Because like we've done, I would say, a fragmented job of promoting our personal brand. I mean, we've done some of the TV stuff. We've done podcasts like this where we kind of reshare what gets shared, but it's, as you know, it's a consistent, continuous pumping out of content to create that omnipresence, as I've heard you refer to it as. What prompted you to go this direction, and then what's been sort of the impact in that?
I think what prompted me was just, I saw that the personal reputation space, right? Branding is personal reputation. It's what people think they're going to get out of connecting with you, right? It's like Rolls-Royce, right? You know that if you buy a product at Rolls-Royce, whether it's a car or a phone, you kind of know what to expect. Kind of know it's going to be top notch. And even if you bought a vacuum cleaner and it was called Rolls-Royce, you'd kind of be like, oh wow, this is going to be some fancy, right? Because that's creating an experience. And so for me, what I saw, and I kind of say I was late to the party. I've done a lot of work in the last couple of years to kind of propel myself faster, but I saw that the personal branding space was really where it was going to go, and it was really going to be your business card. Being able to create your own avatar and your own experience about what it would look like if somebody did business with you or knew you or wanted to know you was a very powerful commodity. And you see it today. You see people that all of a sudden are well known, and they're having the right conversations with people, and the network grows, and now all of a sudden they want to get something done. It happens faster than maybe before, and it's also almost like a shield of protection, right? Because you're kind of creating your own reputation without somebody else having to do it for you. So that was kind of why I did it. It wasn't necessarily, hey, I want to make a bunch of money, because it wasn't necessarily that I was looking to that as a revenue source, right? Like, oh, I want to do this so that I can provide mentorship, or I can provide this or provide that. That really wasn't the narrative that I wanted to create for myself. So I didn't do it for money. I did it because I wanted to have my own legacy about what it was I was trying to do as a healthcare entrepreneur, right? Mm-hmm. So that was kind of like the reason I wanted to give back, and it was a channel and an outlet for me to be able to give back and give information about struggles I've been through and mistakes I've made, and being able to help people through that, because I think that's invaluable, right? Like, you guys have a ton of knowledge. You guys have made a ton of mistakes, and you guys made a lot more right than wrong, right? And from all that are nuggets of information that I think helps other people, and that's why I was, hey, you guys should come in and we should talk, right? Because the things that you guys are saying are helping a lot of people. And so for me, it was that kind of like a help flow to give back to people, to other aspiring entrepreneurs. But in terms of like, what I've gotten out of it, it's just, it's endless. I mean, the people that I've been able to meet, the conversations that I've been able to have. I was on a Zoom call with Dana White a couple of months ago, and he's like, hey, here's my cell phone number, and call me if you need anything, and blah, blah, blah. And then Trump Jr. follows me back on social media, and it's just all these little things that were just kind of like, hey, this is kind of cool, right? Because I'm just a kid from England that grew up in Florida, and didn't really have much, kind of like you guys. I grew up middle class, and had to really create a name for myself. So for me, being able to conversate with these people and get invited to things, and then when I need something and I need help with something and vice versa, it's just a lot easier to do something now. Way easier than I thought. Again, it's just every day. It's just the dividends that it pays every day, whether it's I go to a restaurant, somebody recognizes me there, and I all of a sudden get the table that I wanted, or I get in faster, or I go here and I go there, and all these things. Because you gotta remember, like, my videos alone just in the last 12 months did 450 million views. So the reach has gotten a lot further. That's just in the last 12 months, man. Wow. So the reach is really big, and it's just going to continue to get bigger. So for me, that's the fun, kind of cool part, and I message somebody, they message me back, and it's like, oh, hey man, I've been following you, blah, 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 or vice versa.
Have you found a way yet to integrate? Because yours, ours is like a consumer brand, transactional. Yours is consumer, but it's health related. Have you found a way to tie it in yet, or do you have aspirations to tie it in at some point?
I think it's tied in because of relationships that I have that kind of cross over. Blackstone, we're the largest sleep testing provider in the country. I haven't spent $1 on an ad. Never did a print ad, never did a Facebook ad, nothing, right? It's all, we have reps throughout, 44 states. We're a selling logistics company. We've tested over 1 million patients as of May of this year, and that was a big milestone for us. And so we do a tremendous amount of volume, but I've never advertised the business in that sense, right? It's all through relationships with our doctors. So we haven't figured out, or we're starting to slowly merge a little bit of what we're doing. Now that we have a media company, we're running different ads now, we're testing different things, but we're a business to business, right? We're not we're not a business of consumer.
Doctors who then recommend.
They got to prescribe it, so you have to have a prescription. So I can't come directly to you and say, hey, Nick, get a sleep test, because you're going to say, well, I got to talk to my doctor, then I'm going to go through my insurance, and then we have to have a contract with the insurance and all that type of stuff. So we go direct to business. But I think it'll happen eventually, organically. I think it's a lot of work. That's the one thing I'll tell anybody that really wants
content side.
The whole thing. I mean, you just imagine it's like you guys are so like busy it is, and it's like, okay, now I want you to every day
do more stuff.
You got to shoot content.
Well, that's what Justin was saying. He's got to chase you down sometimes. Yeah, like, I need this video. I need this.
I was in a mediation. No lie. I was in a 12-hour mediation yesterday, which we succeedingly won, and I came down and did a podcast in the middle of the mediation. Like this is how crazy it is. But that's the commitment. I think that's why a lot of people
that's what it takes. It's commitment. It's really what it is.
It's not easy, man. And that's the thing about the brand is you've got to really commit forever.
Yeah.
Like it's not a 3-month thing I'm going to do it for 2 months and drop off. It's like we're already talking about planning for the next conference.
And you can't hold back. Like, you speak your mind. You and that's probably part of my hesitancy is like you got to put yourself all out there.
You got to be unfiltered.
Yeah. And being sort of business.
Well, because somebody's either going to like you for you or they're not.
Right.
And so you get to a point you're just kind of like, whatever. Hey, look, if you don't want to follow me or you don't like my content, then don't watch my content. It's totally fine. I make no bones about it that like I'm a conservative. For me, like I got pictures of Donald Trump in my office, like David Goggins, Magic Johnson. Like I got all these guys. We're about making a boatload of money and doing really well and servicing our patients and doing a great job. And we actually, believe it or not, make it part of the interview process. So when we interview somebody, the first thing we talk to them about, and usually they'll know who I am because they've done some research and like, oh yeah, I want to work for Vick, blah, blah, blah. But if for some reason they haven't, we send them a link of all our Instagram videos. And we're like, hey, watch these videos and we'll call you back in 2 hours. And we want to hear what you think about it. And if you really like it, we want you to give us an essay on it. And if you don't like it,
then you're not going to join.
You're not going to work here. And it's okay. It's not like, just like, hey, if I went to go work for someplace and they were like, hey, I don't want to hire you because of blah and blah. Okay, cool. The thing I'll tell you is, which I think is really funny, is, dude, I don't care if somebody showed up here and they were Chinese or African American, they had purple hair and an AC/DC t-shirt on. I will hire you if you can do the job. If you can add value to my organization, I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you look like. I don't care where you're from. It doesn't matter to me. And I think to successful entrepreneurs, I'm sure you guys feel the same way. It doesn't matter. I don't care what political party you are. I don't care what religion you are, if you're atheist or whatever you are. And if you show up with purple hair, I don't really care. All I care about is, are you going to add value to the organization or not? And that's really the litmus test of what we want. Like, we want people that are going to add a lot of value. And if you're not going to add a lot of value, we don't want you. And we're really ruthless about it. I mean, we're like, hey, are you going to take our organization to the next level or not? Because the worst employee is a good employee. The bad employees are easy. You just fire them, right? They're not doing your job. Like, okay, you got to go. The good ones are the cancer because the good ones do just enough.
Mid.
They do just enough. They show up. They clock out on time. They're there most of the time. They're off here and there. They do most of their work, and you're like, it just doesn't get you there, right? And you guys know this, that your organization's only going to be better in the future if you have the right people. Yeah. So we really have that mentality, and when we started really cogniting on that and making sure that everybody was aligned to our vectors.
So what do you do with those good employees? What's your plan to move them up?
Well, we have an entire training program. We try to get them there. But we hold the bar so high.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing you talk at one point. You said you just work from home and work from the office. It's like, you can work from home, but you're not going to work for me. Yeah, is what you said. And I'm like, that's an interesting philosophy, but that's going to filter out people who are willing and want to go work at the office are going to maybe bring a little different approach, work ethic, drive than somebody that's rather be in their flip flops and bathrobe on the couch. Not to say that all people.
No, but most of them are. I mean, you guys know how hard it is to get people to get stuff done. Mm-hmm. And so when COVID happened, man, I was like day 2 after COVID. I'm like, okay, everybody got to go back to work. Oh, well, everybody's feelings. I'm like, I don't care about your feelings. I have to show up. The bus driver's got to show up. Mm-hmm. The teacher's got to show up. The guy that's working the toll booth on SunPass got to show up. What makes you more important than him? Yeah. You ain't more important than the guy at the SunPass. Like, if these people don't show up, the bus drivers don't show up, the firefighters don't show up, the policemen don't show up, the toll booth people don't show up, the janitors don't show up. You don't have a working civilization. But, excuse me, but you're so important. You get to sit at home on your fucking Zoom and you're half dressed here and you got your pajamas and your slippers on and you're not committed to the team. Like, come on, man, that shit ain't gonna work. That shit ain't gonna work. So we were like, no, you got to come to work. You don't want to come to work? Cool. You ain't gonna work here. Mm-hmm. So we have a whole no work from home policy. And the thing is that companies now are starting to get on the bandwagon with that because they realize now, like, okay, you can't be as productive. Like some departments in our company, we run them hour to hour. I'm not kidding. We run stats hour to hour. Hour to hour, we're knowing exactly what we've sold, where we're at, what we're producing, hour to hour. You can't do that stuff if people are working from home. Mm-hmm. You can't. And look, when I look at our percentage growth over the last 9 years, we've averaged 38% growth year over year for the last 9 years. Wow. 9 years. 9 years. And have we fired a bunch of people? Hell yeah. Like we had somebody that whole Glassdoor. That Glassdoor stuff is a racket.
It's like Yelp for
it's a racket. Yeah. Hold on, I'm gonna create a platform. Glassdoor is a racket. I'm gonna create a platform where everybody can go and complain about your business. But Omar and Nick, no, hold on. If you want to counter their objective, you need to give me $5,000 a month, and you got to sign a contract, and you got to do this and do that. And I was like, you, I'm not doing that, because everyone was like, hey, we got to get on Glassdoor and all this. I'm like, no. I said, look at my Google reviews. My Google reviews are 4 stars. I got thousands and thousands of patients. We tested over 1 million people. Like, the stats speak for themselves. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to buy into this suppression of, oh, now I got to sign up and pay Glassdoor money because Susie Q got fired because her was late to work 3 times in a row, and that's my problem, right? So literally what we do in the interview process, we go, hey, Glassdoor, okay, well, look, let me show you our growth for the last 9 years. Do you think 38% growth happens because we're just lazy and we're not demanding greatness out of our employees?
Yeah.
It's demanding greatness, and that's the thing, man. You got to be like, in my opinion, I think you have to hold a position and say, hey, this is what we're going after. Yeah. You're a good employee. Like we're like this in the trees. Right. You know what I mean? like with the good employees, because they just don't get you there, man. But but it's comfortable. See, the thing is that I noticed, I read a lot of books about this too. That's the trap, because you and I want warm bodies in the seat. You want somebody. It's kind of like, somebody's there. And in my observation, no help is better than bad help. No help is better than bad help. And you sometimes fall into that kind of comfort blanket, right? Because you're like, well, she's there, or oh, he's there. He shows up. He's been here for a year. Mm-hmm. He's made it a year. Yeah. But if you really ask yourself, is that employee taking you to the next level? Because you ain't going to do it all the time. Right. I mean, at some point you get to critical mass. You're not going to do it all the time. The only reason Elon Musk got rockets landing is because he's got a great team. Yeah. It ain't, and it's not him. At some point you grow so big, you have to be able to have great people around you. Otherwise, you're not landing.
I read the Elon biography of Mike Isaacson this summer, and I think the team was a little taken aback when I came back and started trying to light a fire under everybody, because man, when we talk about next level maniacal sense of urgency and obsession of results, he's next level. But I was trying to bring some of that energy because if you're not, as the founder, not going to set that expectation and standard, then and it's got to be consistent. And that's maybe again where you can't allow complacency to creep in, because complacency leads to bad decisions, leads to bad outcomes, and so that's that's a lesson I think we've learned the hard way. And as we think about okay, well, what's our next run we want to go on? It's, to your point, you got to have corporate athletes that want to run with you, and they want to level up the big leagues, and you want to be. I like to say cold on numbers, compassionate on people. Like if they're not hitting their numbers, like you're doing them a disservice by keeping them here. If you can't coach them up, you got to kind of help.
We're not walking around with like axes and shit, and but we're just like, hey, we demand excellence, and it's okay to do that. I think a lot of the times society's pushed you into this, particularly business owners pushed you into this thing where it's like, but you got to be super empathetic, and not saying you shouldn't be at times, but at the end of the day, you're responsible for the whole ship, not a
standards
portion
that you set. I mean, it was Nick Saban, coach of Alabama football. He said high achievers don't like hanging around mediocre people. No. Mediocre people don't like hanging around high achievers. No. The high achievers make the mediocre look bad. The mediocre, piss the high achievers off because they're holding them back. And so it's identifying.
It's real.
Yeah, who are the eagles? Who are the turkeys? And which ones you're gonna kind of push to the side.
It's real.